Hello, my name is Chad Everett Broshears. I'm the creator of the Human Manual, which is a transformational education that shows us where we can develop ourselves and how to develop ourselves in those areas. Today's video is for when you start a relationship or you're in a relationship, how you seem to be more attractive to other people. And then when you're not in a relationship, how you may not be quite as attractive off of that baseline. So, to start off with, this is a common problem or a common thing that people do come across. One of the first things that people notice whenever they see somebody in a relationship, they don't even have to know that they're in a relationship. Whenever you're in that kind of honeymoon phase, you exuberate the joy you're experiencing, whatever attributes you're really focusing on about the person that you're with. You show a type of desire and satisfaction that others may be missing or just not quite experiencing the same way you are. So whenever these people see that, they want it, right? It's they're attracted to it. A lot of this is subconscious. It's not a conscious thought where you're like, oh, I like that attribute. Nearly all of what I'm about to say is all subconsciously driven. It's all latent in us to a great degree. It's not a conscious decision that you see some specific thing. Some people do wish to create upset in other people's relationships, and that's a conscious decision, usually. So that's addressed. This isn't for those people. That's not what this conversation's about. This conversation is about the same thing you've experienced, whether you were on the receiving end, where you became more attractive, or if you were on the end finding someone more attractive. It's these subtle cues that we pick up on. We're very, very good at picking up cues, body language, emotional states, especially for the people that are highly empathic. They experience a lot of this stuff, and it's like knowing things that you just can't put words to. So you see them being happy, and you'll measure how happy you are in your life. And again, this is a subconscious thing. If you're not really that happy in what you're going through, whether you're single or in a relationship, you still find these attributes attractive in another person. So there's the attraction factor there, where there's something going on with you that makes you attractive in a magnetic kind of way that you can't put your fingers on, or your finger on, and neither can they most of the time. These are my experiences to help articulate this experience so that we kind of get out of that vagueness where it just seems to be a mystery and potential for superstition or whatever. I've had a friend of mine suggest that it's a pheromone release in the body, and understanding physiology, you do release pheromones at different stages, which are just a pheromone is it's a scent that we release. It's a hormone-inducing scent, or a hormone influencing scent that we exuberate, that we kind of put off. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's a complete physiological thing in that scenario. A lot of times what you do whenever you're in a really good mood is you have more endorphin releases. You get a lot more of the feel-good hormones, which can influence the pheromones. But this video is not so much about the physiology of it all, just to make mention of how the body reacts in a physiological aspect. Now the psychological is the one that's more predominant in our society. A lot of people don't like to see other people happy, just off the basis that they're themselves not happy in certain areas. It's easy examples of this is just think about any time you found yourself kind of judging somebody negatively, like say maybe somebody pulled up in a sports car or high-end luxury vehicle, or they are capable of spending a great deal of money, and you yourself are still struggling to pay your bills. Envy comes in, and then jealousy can follow, because usually envy comes before jealousy in most instances. You have to identify what you want to be jealous at, and that's not a guarantee. It's just in most instances. So we envy what we don't have, and then we get jealous about it, and we love to tear down leadership. It's a human thing. We like to tear down leadership because what it does is it reminds us of what we're not doing. So it makes you look at yourself about what's not right? What isn't meeting your ideas of what you want to experience, your concepts of success? We have 8 different areas that we have potential to be successful in, or failures in. Not going into those areas right now. You'll have to stay tuned to my videos to find out what those areas are. But as far as for the purpose of this video is simple. We like to tear down leadership. We like to experience things that other people are experiencing. We'd rather experience it before them rather than after them, because it seems like it takes something away if we experience it afterwards. If we see that somebody else is happy in a relationship, we look at how we're not happy necessarily in certain aspects. It doesn't have to be relationship as a whole. It could be maybe your lover or your partner doesn't quite articulate or express the way that you want to be loved. Their expression of love isn't gone. It's just not your language. You can actually look this up and educate yourself. It's a great book, The 5 Love Languages. Great book. And I'm sure that anyone who watches this and reads it would be pretty satisfied with what they learn and find some workability in their relationships where it may not have been before, just off love languages. But I'm not going to belabor you or even really spend much time, because this isn't a video to talk about that necessarily. It's just to mention it. Okay, so now they find that, you know, my lover doesn't give me the right, you know, it's not expressing that they love me the right way, or they're not loving me the way I want them to love me, and I don't know how to tell them how to love me. But I know that by what I expect, I'm not experiencing it, especially if you're putting out a specific amount of effort to show you love the person that you're in a relationship with, and they do not give you the same type of expression or the same degree of energy expectation. So we'll start to covet other concepts, other people's relationships. It's off of what you find attractive. And it's not that you're really out to sabotage them necessarily in this particular viewpoint. It's more that you're just out to experience some of the joy you see the other person going through. Again, this is a subconscious reaction for most people. It's not a conscious thing. If it's a conscious thing to purposely go out and ruin other people's relationships, that's more of a sociopathic issue. That's a psychological problem that may not be to the point of diagnosis yet, but it is an imbalanced, empathy lacking way of being, and the more of that you get into, the more likely you're to become a sociopath. It's an interesting definition, by the way. Look it up when you have time. So with that, we covet those things. It's whatever it is, right? And there's a lot more to it than the way they smile or the way they hold their body. It's a lot of it. So, and I won't belabor you any further with that particular viewpoint, but I'm going to move on to, this is a great one, self-validation. And one of the things about self-validation is if you see a challenge, if you can accomplish your goal in that challenge, you're validating yourself. This is another one that can be subconscious, but it's also possible to be conscious. And again, if you're conscious to this, you're more of a sociopath than you are just kind of acting out of lack of understanding. So if it's a challenge you see before you, you can really easily find yourself thinking, well, if I get this relationship, or if I can be with this person, and I know that they're that kind of in love with the person that they're with, then it really proves that I am a person of value. I am somebody that people want to be around, that I am validated, like validating myself by my own means in this test. And the other person who is unknowingly part of it is also working in to validate or invalidate that person. This is a viewpoint. This is just something for people to grow through. I personally come from a background of absolutely needing to validate myself in so many ways. That's why I was very competitive in my youth in many ways. Not in relationships, though. I would not be competitive in relationships. I would leave one before I competed with another person. Just never seemed like it was of value for me to continue to stick around if I was invalidated like that. That was my experience anyhow. And it's perfectly fine the way it is. Right? I've evolved out of that to another viewpoint, another type of being. So we seek out to be validated. We do this all the time. Our society is conditioned from the moment that you are capable of understanding anything in this world. Your parents are already pitting you against other children. So as a baby that's just learning to walk, How many times have you heard people bragging about their child walking so very early in their developmental stages, and they're just so pleased about it? But that's a competition factor. Yes, you may be prideful about it, but what's not being said is it's a competitive thing. They have to measure it against other children that are, in this particular experience, and this viewpoint is kind of a failure. So we're driven from the moment we're babies to be competitive. We're taught to be competitive. It's a capitalist society. We're supposed to be competitive to get ahead. So we're constantly trying to be competitive in everything. And a lot of the things that we're competitive in, you have no idea you're even competing. And then in other things, you may know for a fact, you may be obsessed at the idea of competing in certain areas, like bodybuilding or exercise, or predominantly in the physical body. But then there's also a great deal of competitiveness in finances, in the world of finance or business. So these aren't non-existing magisterias, right? These are real things that people live inside of. So we do look to be validated, and what you do when you're competing is to be validated for being good at what you do. And most people are seeking out to be the best at what they do compared to anyone else who tries it to be their best, right? So that's what we're looking for, validation. And there is a lot of it out there. And we seek to be validated in all 8 areas of our abilities to mature. We're always out to validate ourselves somehow, even in areas that we're insecure about and that we feel very ashamed of. When they finally does come to light and somebody else experiences it, one of the first things most people do, and what we do as a human being, is we kind of wait for a reaction as if we're validated or not. It's an instantaneous thing for most people. It depends on how much shame is there about areas that you're not matured in before you recognize whether or not you actually, so if there's a lot of shame, you're not even going to notice that you are waiting for validation. You feel rejected instantly because it's something to be shameful of. That's the whole concept with shame, is that rejection. So there's the validation factor. Then there is the urgency factor. And this usually comes in for people that have existing relationships with the person that now is in a relationship. So you may have a background, you may have flirted with each other, you may have just been friends and never actually talked about it, but one or two of both of the people may have entertained the idea but never really verbalized it. There's an urgency now because it's like in sales. In sales, if somebody tells you the particular sale that's on is going to last indefinitely, it's no longer a sale to you, right? It's just something you can go back and get at a discount, rather than a discount only if others aren't competing in that same price range. Otherwise, it's just the price, right? So we have this sense of urgency. If you haven't taken action before, and there is some degree of fantasy or unspoken promises about how things would be with that person, predominantly we would just reference that as being fantasy, you would almost certainly feel like you need to act. You need to really show that you're interested, because if they get into a relationship where they seem really happy, there's a piece of us that is a little speculative about whether or not they're actually going to go to the next stage, which makes them even more unavailable. So there's the urgency factor, right? This is backed by many things, but the urgency, for simplicity, is that it's do or die. I better really put forth my best effort, or I'm not going to accomplish this. I'm not going to be able to be with this person. I'm not going to be able to, and each one of these areas can actually come back on top of the urgency piece, which all of these can exist at one time. So that's pretty much the basis for this. I wasn't expecting a lawnmower to start in the background, and I will not have you guys have to go through that wonderful noise. So to really sum it up, there are perfectly logical reasons that are usually subconscious to what actually causes us to behave as we do when somebody gets into a relationship that makes us more attractive or less attractive whenever we're single. So when we're single, sometimes you're really happy, sometimes you're not, but you don't have somebody else kind of meeting needs that you have when you're single so much as you do when you're in a relationship, especially the newer stages of a relationship. I hope that this video has been beneficial for you. I've enjoyed making it. I appreciate first off, your patience. These videos are still fairly new. I'm still overcoming some of my own insecurities in this field because it is still new, right? And I want to be received in such a way that at least you see value with what I have to say. With that, every day try something new. Really put yourself out there. Your goals, your success in life is not going to show up at your doorstep. The mailman is not delivering it. The cavalry ain't coming. You're it. So create it. Try it. Swing out. If it's for a relationship you've always wanted but you're afraid to be rejected, you know what? I've been rejected a lot. And rejected in many ways, not just in, intimate relationships. So try. Just put yourself out there. Really give it a chance. Just like these videos. This may be one of the worst videos you've ever seen. I don't know. And I'm welcoming the feedback because at least then I know where my work is. But by all means, grab a bat, step up to the plate, and try it out. So with that, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate you allowing me to hold your attention hostage. And I release you now. You've paid the ransom with your attention. Thank you so much. My name again is Chad Everett Brochures. I am the founder of the Human Manual to Transformational Education. Thank you again. And with great love and appreciation, have a great day.